Uh, so these women, a group of Yolngu First Nations women, together with a group of white academics, wrote this book. And they say, country is the keeper of the knowledge we share with you. Country gives the knowledge for this book. It guides us and teaches us. Country has awareness. It is not just a backdrop. It knows and is part of us. Country is our homeland. It is home and land, but more than that, it is the seas and the waters, the rocks and the soils, the animals and the winds and people too. It is the connections between those things and their dreams and emotions, their languages and their law. Country is the way humans and non-humans co-become, the way we emerge together, have always emerged together, and will always emerge together. It is all the feelings, all the songs, all the ceremonies, the things we cannot understand and cannot touch, the things that go beyond us, that anchor us in eternity, in the infinite cycles of kinship, sharing, and responsibility. Country is the way we mix and merge, the way we are different and yet become together, a part of each other. It is the messages, languages, and communication from all beings to all beings. So I'm not going to talk too much about the work that I've done or where I've been. All that information can be found through Google. But what I do want to do is just take a moment to just notice where we are. So Alex noticed that she had a bottle brush out her window. So just take a moment to take your own eyes from your screen and just see where it is that you are, which pieces of country you can see, what's growing, what's living, what are the objects in the space that you're in, the quality of the air, the temperature. The histories that we know, the histories that we don't know, what sits underneath the floorboards and the concrete and the foundations. The sounds. And that it's that noticing, that moment of acknowledging countries, acknowledging all those things, not only as we notice them, but an awareness of the way that they impact us and our practice. So the interrelationship between objects, ideas, living and non-living beings, all have an impact. One practice that I use, which is about heightening attention, is called drawing breath. So just pull over, if you've got a piece of paper and pencil near you, just pull it over. And if you can move your screen so that it moves from your face to your page, and that's an easy thing to do, try that. If it's not an easy thing to do, then that's also really fine. And so this is a practice called drawing breath, which is about heightening attention. And for me, who's someone where the pedagogies I work with are about attention, presence, awareness, and heightening of attention, this is a practice that I use all the time in workshops independently. And it works like this. So for each in-breath, make a mark. And for each out-breath, another mark. And that mark can be in whatever way that you like. But this is a practice of repetition and accumulation and creating a very, very clear connection between an in-breath And an out breath. And just noticing how the length of the mark is connected to the length of the breath. That there's a relationship between the sound of the breath and the sound of the tip of the pencil as it moves across the page. And notice if your attention has shifted, if it's still connected, so that there's still a strong relationship between the in-breath and the mark, and the out-breath and the mark. Mapping breath. Conversation between breathing and mark making, living and objects. Rhythm, cycles. And if for a moment you can unmute, and we may get some feedback now. Kelly really had a huge impact on me last week, just the recognition of the word mute. And I've really been playing with the idea of unmuting and kind of inviting and embracing the feedback. So if you just want to unmute, and let's just see whether we can hear the sound of the breath. And we'll just practice that together for a moment. And then just notice again how connected you still are. If you want to go back and mute so that we don't end up with feedback. And then if you want to just lift up your drawn breath and hold it up so that it fills your screen. And then if you can do the juggle to shift across, because there are a few of us here, so we're across 2 screens. And just get a sense of, in this space, at this time, with this humans, in this moment, there are multiple ways of experiencing and noticing drawn breath. There are different textures, different pressure. Those marks tell different stories about the ways we map our livingness. And each of those pages independently, or the collection of those pages, starts to tell a story. And for me, these kinds of practices in the development of projects and work also give permission for other ways of knowing, which the experience of spending time in acknowledgement of country also does. So while I haven't introduced kind of who I am, where I sit and what I've done, what I do want to do is a citation practice. And I will share some of my own lineage and the giants on whose shoulders I stand, because each of us are a collection of the people, the moments, the papers, the books, the encounters, the experiences, the families that have given birth to us and our practice. So we might work with young children, and we might work in learning spaces, and we come with all the things that make us who we are. So we become ourselves as a result of many. And for me, that is important for lots of reasons, because the work in creative learning is also about expanding range for communities so that we recognize who we are and the lenses we see through, but also expand that range. So in the same way as we might sit around a table and say, who is at this table with us? So who is making these decisions? Who is developing this work? Is there someone that has an experience of autism? Is there someone that has an experience of living in a different color skin than us? Is there someone that has an experience of gender that is different? So while we ask that question when we sit around tables about whether or not we're recognizing who is having the conversations we are having, we also need to ask that question about ourselves, because we are our own table. And so for me, I notice that many of the academics, friends, people that influence my thinking are queer women. So in some ways, while all my work is about expanding range, I'm constantly checking that at my own personal table, there is a wide range of influence, because I run the risk of only seeing in a particular way. So and also this citation practice, this lineage practice changes for me all the time. So I do this regularly, and I regularly forget important people to include. And sometimes I'll include something or someone that had an impact recently. So what's happened in the last night or at the last shifting and stirring might have that influence. So I am going to share this for a couple of minutes, and then we are going to collectively do a citation and lineage practice in the chat function. So we're going to sit together for a moment and just make visible the people and ideas that have influenced our practice and our work. And that may be a writer, or it may be a grandparent, or it may be your experience of rain and the way that that has had an impact on your practice and on your work. So I will go, and then we'll take a minute to just make sure everybody knows where the chat function is. And we will share that work, which we will then collect and put into a Google Doc so that everybody can have that work, and can also go back in a later date, so that if you want to put in a link to a book or expand on a story or a link to an article, we will have that marker of this moment in time that we have shared. Yeah. So I will go and just share the list that I wrote last night. Quietness, breath and breathing, trees, climbing them, particularly the branches that held me and hid me. India and the colour and visible unhiddenness of everything. Pregnancy, breastfeeding, motherhood. Richard Bach, Illusions, Peter Brook, Conference of the Birds, Jeanette Winterson, Art Objects, and everything she wrote and writes. Miranda July, Loss, Writing Backwards in Graphite and Ink, Anne Bogart and Viewpoints, Circus, Social Circus, Youth Circus. When I learned the word pedagogy, New York, particularly Central Park, particularly in spring, the ceramic studio in Brooklyn and Louise Bourgeois' studio, which was downstairs, and the door on which I never knocked. Regret, Stan Rafe and his vision, loss, Ken Robinson, John Gatto, the hidden curriculum of compulsory schooling, William Kentridge, John Berger, Donna Haraway, Staying with Trouble, Yoko Ono, Sappho, Susan Sontag, Rebecca Solnit, Dorothy Porter, Kate Tempest, John Cage, Mirka Mora, Cy Twombly, Anne Carson, Helene Sixou, Marina Abramovic, particularly her collaboration with Ule, Maggie Nelson, Bluets and the Argonauts, Sophie Calais, Joe Pollitt, collaborator, John Dewey. Vipassana meditation, graphite, paper, Kabbalah and Jewish cultural traditions, the Holocaust, survival, my grandmother Ida Bakajina and the way food was the story, particularly the way she told stories underneath stories and the untold, invisible, unspoken stories that were clearly more important than the spoken stories, that she survived, that I am the eldest daughter of the eldest daughter of the eldest daughter, the study of children's geographies, Frida Kahlo, Joe Pollitt, for poetry as real life and for a lifelong partnership, the ongoing journey of Big Kids magazine, Frank Newman and the creativity framework, creative leadership in learning, Alex Desbrock and her work with multi-generational audiences, Risk, Red Room Poetry, Candy Royale, Conversations with Rain, Materials, Pencils and Paper, Maxine Green, Aesthetic Education, Social Imagination and Wide Awakeness. And I will share that so that you can, if there is something or someone that sparks interest, you can then go further and look. But let's now take a moment to just work in chat. So just make sure that you can see chat, that you found it in at the side of Zoom. And let's just take a moment to write in together whatever you feel comfortable with sharing. And feel free to repeat something or someone that sparks a memory for you if you then go, oh, of course. So that's also fine. And let's just take a minute to experience what this collective practice of writing, doing, remembering, acknowledging might look like, with the understanding that you can share anything that you like. Okay? So as soon as you feel ready, we might be writing over each other. Let's play and see what this ground is that we as a collective community of practitioners stand on. Whose are the shoulders that we stand on?
You are. Yay. Okay, so just mute yourself on Zoom. Just mute yourself on Zoom. Can you see how to do that? You just do your little. So just listen in. Everyone's just. You're all good, Aiden?
Yeah.
Okay, I've written that in for you. I'm going to see what.
Luke or Charlie or Aiden, if you need any help with me to transcribe for you, anything you want me to put in this list, just unmute yourself and I will write it in for you, okay?
I don't know. I don't understand what it means riding on shoulders.
I think we're going to talk about all of the list later, Charlie. Right now, we're just adding to it. It's just like a flow of words. So if there's something that inspires you, you just call it out and I'll write it in. If something you see says, yes, I love to make, or I feel, I'll put it in. Just let the words out. Luke or Aiden, if there's anything else you want me to add.
So just take a minute to flip back through the list. If you've been writing, often this opens up a lot of thinking about what actually is the premise of practice and the things that impact us and we respond to. It's also an invitation to recognize non-linearity and that our practice and experience is not always drawn from, nor does it play out in ways that are straightforward. So even that experience, so Kelly, that interaction that you had just had then with Charlie about that feeling of not understanding or not being quite sure what's going on, I really am interested in creating spaces in creative practice where there is room for different kinds of knowings and understandings. So even in this setup, the expectation is here we are, we're doing something, everybody understands what we're doing, we're writing things in the chat function, but there are all kinds of other processes going on. So the permission that you can not understand, but just notice that somebody in this has written lists. That might be all you take from this, and then move into another space to start writing a list as a way of engaging. So how we give permission to each other, and then in our practice, but then as we're working with communities and with young people, to work with different knowledges, not just the primary Western academic linear chronological knowledges that not only are the things that we form our structures on, but also even in our creative practices, we still often come to a point where we need to work with some kind of linear chronological structures. But there are other ways. So there are feeling ways and not knowing ways, and other ways of knowing and not knowing that also have value. So we are now going to go into breakout rooms to have a chat and to just talk about citational lineage as a practice, to reflect on it, to maybe share something that feels really significant in your own practice. And we'll be in quite small groups, so there'll only be 4 of us in each of those groups, so that we can just take a minute to talk more personally about that practice. And we'll have about 10 minutes for that. So you've got a bit of time to kind of get to know who's in the room, and then talk about this idea of taking time for a lineage and citation practice, and what that might mean for you, if you've got one, who those people and experience, objects and ideas are. So Alex, are you gonna break us out?
I am. Lily, do you want to be in a group?
Maybe we should just quickly touch base, Alex.
Yep. I'll just remove you. Oh, I might have to put you in, and then you might have to come back out again.
That's all right. Maybe I'll come in and just come out a few minutes early or something.
Yeah, something like that. I think I'm just going to hit go, and it'll be groups of 4 and 5 and a bit messy. But have fun, everyone. We'll see you in 10 minutes. You all should see a thing that, and you click it, that says, I want to go to the breakout room.
Aiden, are you there? Oh, hang on.
Oh, how's it going, Kelly?
Fine.
Yeah, good.
I'm going to mute. There you are, Aidan. I found you. I'm going to see if I can get my headphones working. Hang on. Okay, Aidan, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you're asking, this is Alex that's in this room with us, who's helping us run this session so that we can do it.
Hi,
Yeah.
Aidan. How are you? Nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Alex, I think we're just going to chill out in this room, if that's all right.
Yeah, totally fine.
So that I don't lose it again. Aidan has very poor internet where he is, so doing more than things at once, sometimes it crashes, doesn't it, Aidan? Yep. So I think what we were talking about, Aidan, I saw you managing that chat. Good on you, getting the WWE. Wrestling is one of Aidan's inspirations, Alex. And we were supposed to go to the back-to-back camp this year because one of their workshops was about wrestling. But we ended up, because of this silly virus, we didn't get to go. But we're going to go another time. I know.
Yeah.
Aidan was very excited about it, but that's okay. What else, Aidan? Other than WWE, what else do you love? You want to put it in the chat? Good on you. What do you love, Alex? What is some of your thoughts on all of this?
I was thinking a lot about the changing in seasons. And I was thinking about Japan a lot, actually, and how it's influenced me in different ways. I really loved how, but also artists as well, like Mammalian Diving Reflex and Polyglot and Art Play have all been really big influences on my practice. Doctor Who.
Yes, I love Doctor Who too. I love, what I'm trying to think about, Doctor Who is interesting to me. I used to love isn't it Doctor Who that has the phone booth, Aidan?
The TARDIS.
The TARDIS. What that says about space. See, I didn't write space down, thank you. Space is huge to me, and definitely public space. And private space. It just makes you go into this rabbit hole of thoughts. When the one person just puts one thing like that, it reminds you of all these other ideas. Atoms versus universe. Nice. Are you watching the latest Doctor Who, Aidan?
Not yet.
Not yet. Isn't the new Doctor Who a woman?
Yes. Yeah.
How do you feel?
How do you
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
Happy.
You feel okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I wonder, I don't know. I'm just thinking, I don't feel like, I'm thinking about that in terms of, everything, gender and gender, beautiful, fluid, and how our TV is even allowing that and modeling that for us, to recognize that difference and the diversity. But I don't think gender's ever been a thing for me in terms of work, but I'm not sure.
I wonder sometimes whether I've been seriously influenced because my name's gender neutral. So assumptions people make, assumptions people make quite often that without meeting me just through written form that I'm a man, whether that's, and I can sometimes tell the difference as well when they think I'm a man and when they think I'm a woman, and how that maybe has given me permission to do things that maybe I haven't realized.
Yeah, back in my generation, Kelly was a boy's name as well.
Yeah,
not so much anymore. Well, outside of Ireland and places, but no, it's interesting. But I was when I was born, I was quite jaundiced and had pitch black hair, and my mother sent me back saying, "No, this is not my baby."
because it didn't recognize me at
lovely.
all, right? And I was so fat and so ugly for so long that she shaved my head to try and make it grow back thicker, and she pierced my ears and all this, and everyone still thought I was this little roly-poly boy. Because then, you know, in the 70s, everyone had their ears pierced. It didn't matter. That was the time. It didn't matter. So there was always kind of this neutral, I don't know, but it never really, I never really went into the girl and to the pink or any of that, but I wasn't, you know, I wasn't really aware of it being a gender difference, of, you know. But I live on an island at the end of the planet, so, you know, there's a lot we were not aware of, you know, what's going on in the world.
It's interesting, like, I do think, you know, in terms of isolation, I think living in Perth is, you know, growing up in Perth, definitely in Australia, the landscape and the isolation we feel in these, like, not Sydney or Melbourne, anywhere else in Australia, basically. That's something that I think influences all of our practices.
Yeah,
that blue
definitely.
sky, that sense of space.
Yeah. And that,
I've got to close all the rooms.
Okay, great. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. It's just a button. I just needed to press it.
I saw that time list. I was like, wow, they're organized by the minute for this session. I thought, wow, I don't know that I could ever do that, you know, in the world. I don't think the world of Second Echo works in minute to minute, but it would be wonderful to try.
Well, I think that's the thing. You write a plan and then you throw it out the window.
Yeah, right. It's good.
But I just like to, you know, we just.
I loved that. I was like, oh, awesome. So good.
Yeah.
I think Aidan's looking for music. He wanted to do a dance for you, I think, Alex. He wanted to show you his moves of his inspiration, but that can happen later. That might happen at another time if everyone's coming back. I can't wait to see this whole list. I couldn't keep up with it. It was going so quickly.
Yeah, I've just, actually I can share it with you. Just copied and pasted it into a Google Doc.
It's all right. I can just save the chat and then it will, it goes automatically to my computer. Are you doing your Google connected to Zoom?
No.
There's an app you can do that and automatically saves all the recordings to your Google Drive and all of the chats as Google Docs.
Yeah, right.
You don't even have to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Next learning, next evolution. Yeah. Hey, Rainbow.
Hello. Sorry, the power went out in my house.
That keeps happening to you.
Look, it's a bit crazy. There are 4 of us all doing our own thing in different rooms, trying to be warm, and it's freezing in Melbourne.
Yes, those heaters. I remember that happening quite often. The heaters just tripping the power.
Yeah, not usually a problem, but we're all at home.
Yeah, everyone's in breakout rooms at the moment, and they'll be back like in 30 seconds, I think.
Great.
Yeah.
You're in the non-breakout, Rainbow. We just breaking the rules and didn't break out and decided
in the party room.
Yeah, we're partying in the main room.
There we go. Everyone's coming back.
I'm back.
You're back. What'd you do, Luke?
Talk with you.
Yeah, how about you, Charlie? All good?
Oh, yeah. I did talk. Yeah.
Great. Good on you, mate. I can't wait to hear it.
Awesome. Now everyone gets to try and find Lily again on the screen.
Yeah.
Where's Lily? It's like,
there's a question though.
Lily!
Yes, Luke.
Hello.
I've got like copy of the book, please.
Thank you, Lily.
I'll write that in the chat, Luke.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Lily. I've got to leave now.
Bye, Cara. Lovely to see you.
Bye, Cara.
Bye.
Frank, where are you, Frank? Oh, you're not even on my screen. Hang on.
What? How can I not be on your screen?
There you are. Maybe I'll pin you so that then.
Oh, Kelly.
See where you are. That's better.
Right. All right. I'm going to pin you. So do you want to overview this section, Lily, and kind of?
Sure. So Frank is, so now we're going to introduce a project, Agua Gently, which is a project that developed kind of a few weeks into COVID shutdown. And Frank Newman from Sydney Opera House is going to we're going to have a chat about the project, which just kind of gives a different sort of texture to the way that we can experience ideas and projects. And maybe just let's launch in. Frank and I have an existing relationship, so we've been working together for what, 6 years or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Listen, so we talked about, you know, how this chat would unfold, and Lily and I had a couple of pre-meetings to kind of just talk about Agua Gently. So maybe for those that don't know the project, do you want to just talk a little bit about that, and then we can just let
okay, maybe I'll just do a screen share and show the project first, and then I'll come back. Okay, can everyone see that screen? Yeah, cool. So as I said, Agua Gently was born a few weeks into COVID-19. I work at the Art Gallery of Western Australia as the head of learning and creativity research and an artist educator. And there was an enormous amount of pressure on me at the beginning of shutdown to put content up online. And I had an extreme reaction to that expectation, partly because I was personally overwhelmed by the content that was being put on to the internet. And also I saw a lot of people doing really, really beautiful work. And I didn't feel ready, or that it needed to be added to quickly. So I responded very slowly, and Agua Gently was born from a recognition of the need for space. So it's on one level, it's a project for young children to participate in with parents, carers, or adults. And it's a series of very simple provocations that illustrate a wide range of things and create an opportunity for a wide range of experience. So it grew from my own experience of play in the time of shutdown. I noticed a kitchen tray after baking sweet potato, which is the one on the right, and was just playing with leaves and sticks outside. So the project is a series of photographs and provocations. They pop up on social media streams as an invitation to leave the screen and have an experience. They're loosely grouped into elements and principles, so they illustrate the way that we can learn about by having an experience of. So rather than learning about storytelling or learning about shape, colour, line, and the elements and principles that make up visual analysis practice, they're distilled prompts for experience. And inherent in the language is the invitation to slow down, take time, notice, be embodied, follow open-ended impulses, make connections. And the idea, yeah.
Lily, do you want to talk about the word, how the word gently came about and where that came from? Did that come from an emerging, was that something that was already sort of swirling around for you, or was that something which was a response to the sort of busyness? Or talk to us about the word gently.
That's a great question. So, and I'll send through the link so that everybody has this, but in my overwhelm, you know, my daughter's teacher sent home a list of links to resources, and the list was like 200 links to learning resources. And so I was just having this experience of complete overwhelm. And somebody put together a list called Gently Curated List of Resources or something like that. And I looked at this list and had such a profound and powerful response just to the word gently, that all I really wanted from the list was the experience of gentleness. So it just opened up for me this idea of how a word can impact our nervous systems and can open to the potential of experience. So it really came from there.
It's such a lovely idea that just the word has an impact in our nervous system, and every time I think the word, even I do feel that. I do get that sense that, you know, it's like a breath. And so it's such a lovely, maybe that's made more powerful by these times, you know, that it is kind of like, you know, there is this incredible rush to load resources up onto line and to kind of get it all right and get sort of somehow figure out how to work from home. This kind of this invitation to go gently was so welcoming to me. And what's the response to this been? What talk to us about the sort of the response to Agua Gently?
Well, that's an interesting question too, because it has an inbuilt failure, right? Because the idea is that you leave your screen and don't come back to it. But in lockdown, the only way to really know whether or not people are engaging with it is if they go back to their screens and upload hashtags or somehow give evidence that they have engaged with it. So we have had some really lovely responses online, but most of the responses have come through in emails of either from artists or educators or even parents interested in talking more about the project. And also, I think the thing that's really interesting about projects like this is this project is right at the very beginning. So I work on projects for a really long time. And often the expectation of an organisation or an institution is that you develop the project and then you put the project up and then that's kind of, that's it, that's the project. But for me, this is something that will evolve over time. So yeah, I'm just really interested in the idea that, you know, for a period of time we had this way of connecting. It was difficult to work with post and other things because there were risks around that. So I guess the question of how you know whether or not people are responding when you can't see it, I'm really interested in that idea. I think Alex and I actually had a conversation one day just about, you know, if your conversation or if the idea or if the project or if the experience is not put on the internet, did it really happen? So yeah.
You also talked, Lily, about the notion that about experience as outcome, and that, so, you know, which again lives in this kind of this sort of strange sort of problem that, you know, that this is so that the internet is so based on kind of having products to, you know, to show, you know, which there it's all about content, and we, you know, and context is, you know, is suddenly removed entirely because everyone's just, they can't see it. So this is a really interesting, again, sort of push back against a lot of those bigger sort of mindsets which are driving so much of the content online. So yeah. How's it been received within your institution? How have your, you know, colleagues, managers, peers received it?
So it's a constant fight. I think the thing that makes it possible to carve space for process and experience and thinking as an outcome is that there's a commitment to consideration around aesthetic, so that whatever is created or developed is the beauty of it and the virtuosity of it is considered. And that seems to give me permission for the thinking to be the outcome. But it is I say fight, but it's a very kind of joyous and gentle fight. Like it doesn't feel, I think that generally human beings, all of us recognize the importance of lived experience. And it doesn't take much to invite others into a space of understanding that. So it just takes courage to suggest it. So particularly, I mean, I often work in a boardroom, and my transition from being an independent artist for 30 years to being a public servant was a shocking transition. But there are ways to suggest that the importance of practice and process is an outcome in itself. So even for us today, so we've, you know, in talking about this session, we talked about really wanting to create an opportunity for this 2 hours to be the outcome, that this collection of people that have come together for this 2 hours on this day, in this moment in history, is a thing in and of itself. And so at this moment, I might be the one talking, Frank, you're kind of framing it because you're asking questions, but each of us here is having an emerging experience of understanding, of learning, of epiphany, of noticing, of insecurity, of connection, of the planting of seeds for projects, of questioning collectively. And that is something that has impact in and of itself. Like we don't have to now go away and do something and make a project and deliver it for this experience to have value. Like,
but Lily, there's a thought which is rummaging around my mind, which is that of around the frame. Like, so if the experience is, if time is flattened because the outcome is the experience, then where does that moment, that heightened moment of the show happen, where so much learning happens or so much experience happens, which is bound by the fact that there's this deadline, this date, this moment which can't be kind of changed, and so everyone's heightened and you have to get there and everyone's pushed and there's this sort of that notion of that's an incredibly, it feels, I'm not sure whether that's counter or that's, you know, or
it's not counter. It's like Ali Smith, How to Be Both. So the paradox is, how can both those things be equally important? And I think much earlier in my career, I was very process-based. So I wasn't really interested in production and outcomes. I now am at a place where those things are equally important. So I'm interested in virtuosity as much as process and thinking being an outcome in itself. So that's where, that's where the trouble lives. So that's Donna Haraway's Staying with the Trouble. So that's exactly it, Frank. How is the question? And I don't really have an answer for how, but that is the question. How do we develop and create projects that have production outcomes that are, so Scott Rankin from Big Art uses the word virtuosic, and I think it's a powerful one because I also think that historically community arts projects or multi-generational arts projects didn't have virtuosic outcomes. So they were fantastically impacting projects and everyone had a brilliant time, but you would not show them in a major public gallery. So last year, for the first time at the Art Gallery of Western Australia, we showed a child-made work in a public exhibition. And that was a massive moment in time to go, there can be an impacting, emotional, socially justice-driven experience that also has an outcome that can sit alongside this kind of ivory tower of arts practice that community and sort of education work doesn't sit alongside. And I'm really interested in what happens when you carve space for the process to be primary, but there is still that same rigor sits around the practice, around the production. So, I mean, Frank, that's something that, you know, we worked into a lot in the creativity framework, was how those things sit together and can be equally as important. And you know, the process is also visible in the production, and there is an experience, there is a lived experience in the production as well. So I don't think one is more important than the other. It's just much easier to make a case for production. So it's much more difficult to make a case for thinking being an outcome in itself, or experience being an outcome in itself.
I think a lot of people would value that, you know, that the road is, you know, the road is the goal, and you know, a lot of people would, and a lot of people would have sentiments like that. But I think one of what your practice really brings about is actually how to frame that so that it does lead towards the virtuosic. And so it'd be interesting to, you know, how do you think how are you trying to make that happen for you? How are you trying to strike that balance? What practical things have you done, which some of them are visible in Agua Gently, but can you talk about what you're thinking in that space, how to create the virtuosic through the process?
Yeah, so first of all, work with virtuosic artists, and then give artists permission to turn up as themselves. So to me, that's key. So again, earlier in my practice, I kind of had a parallel careers. So I worked in arts learning, and I had an independent artist practice. And now those things are one and the same. So I turn up as the head of learning and creativity research as an artist. So my practice, I lead with practice, and that's where the virtuosity comes in. So it's all that, so I talk about it as like classroom-based studio practice. So my studio practice, the same practice that I work with in a studio when I'm developing an independent exhibition or work, those same practices I bring into a classroom, metaphorical or physical classroom. And I think that's where the virtuosic comes in, the idea that those same principles that you might use, you know, in a rehearsal process and a theatrical production process when you're putting up a show at the Opera House, or you're putting up an exhibition at the Art Gallery of Western Australia, those same principles, that same rigor of practice lives in the work. So it plays out in a very practical way. So, you know, it plays out in the fight for, you know, the way that a flyer is developed, or the aesthetic of a project. You know, those same that same kind of commitment to rigor, I guess, is how it plays out. But I think really the key is the virtuosity of artistic practice, and what we learn in studio spaces and rehearsal rooms is what plays out in community projects. Like it's the same, it's the same thing. And sometimes both to have the money, to have the time, to have the support, to recognize that a mark made by a child, or the perspective of somebody living with autism, can have as much value as the mark made by somebody sitting at the top of the ivory tower of the visual arts. I mean, I just think, yeah, I have moved from fighting for the right for children to have access to the arts to the right for communities to have access to children's thinking, because it's that do you know what I mean? Like, children don't really need me that much. I do think the world needs children. So, you know, all the work I've done, particularly with young people with autism recently, I'm not sure how much they need my projects. I do think the world needs them. I see. Yeah. So that's been a shift in the last 5 years, where the fight has kind of changed. So all the research, everything we know about creative learning is that it has a positive impact, right? We know that it has a positive impact on learning, on literacy, on numeracy, on positive aging, on well-being. Like, we know that it's good for us. So then how do the kinds of projects that we develop impact culture, rather than how does culture impact these isolated, underprivileged communities? I'm not interested in that question anymore. We've answered it over and over and over again. I'm interested in how the general public, how culture and community is impacted by the kinds of projects that we develop.
If you were to have one wish for Agua Gently, what would it be?
That it would inform that what sits at the heart of it, which is embodiment, heightened attention, presence, open-endedness, connection, would sit at the heart of our models for education and learning and curriculum. So I think
programming.
Ultimately that would be my, the big wide blue sky thinking, that embodied practice, which is what sits at the heart of that project, would inform the opportunities we provide for children, across Australia.
Yeah.
At a government level.
Yeah. Are you writing, Lily, at the moment? Are you kind of working on anything longer or? Yeah.
So the Conversations with Rain project, which Alex sent through a link to, which was a partnership with ECU School of Education. We've just started writing a paper for that project, which will look at some of the ideas, Frank, that came from the creativity framework that then morphed into the Agua learning methodology, which has all these elements in it, mostly about embodiment and heightened attention that come through creative practice. So yes, interestingly, I've been thinking a lot about writing at the moment, and writing something I've really resisted because I struggle with pinning things down. So I like things to stay open. So as soon as something's written, it can't also be other. But I feel like I'm getting to a point where I'm able to articulate things in a way that makes space for other as well as it.
Listen, Alex, I might leave it there. I think probably a good time, and Lily, to move on. But I think, it'd be great to see where that writing goes and to send it around, because I think the ideas that you're generating are going to be influential and capture a lot of people's hopes and desires for this sector, if we can call this such. But thanks for having the chat. Fun.
Thanks, Frank. Always lovely to chat with you.
Can you want to say something?
So we're just going to open up now so that people can go on. Alex, did you want to say something?
Charlie's got a question. Do we have time for questions now? Would you want to say?
So that's exactly what I was going to say. So we're going to have questions and a chat, and you can make a cup of tea, you can leave your screen, you can go do what you need to do, and we'll just open it up. So questions, or if someone's just got something that they want to share, we'll just spend the next, I don't know, we can probably push it back to 10 minutes or so to just have a chat.
Cool. So till 9:23 by my clock. We'll just kind of tea moment and questions.
Yeah, we could probably push to 15.
Cool. Let's see. Thank you so much, Lily. All right, my brain's full. I'm sure other people are as well. If people want to get up and have a cuppa, I'm going to stop the sharing so that we can all see each other.
Yeah, thanks.
Ta-da. Okay, let's take a wee break and see you guys back here, or unmute and ask questions, start chatting.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, I'm off there. Great.
Charlie, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do, yeah. So, about the breakout room I was in, they're talking about the practice ever, and I should and I just say something about that is I went to Victoria and I done a workshop on country. It was all about
Charlie, are you talking about something that happened in your breakout room? Kelly's just messaged me that you talked about practice in your breakout room.
yeah, it did.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yes, Charlie.
I'm just talking about the Herons of Victoria.
Is this with time, place, space, Charlie, when we met Chris and Alana?
That is with our practice we did.
Yeah, at the time, place, space that Charlie was an artist on with Arts House, we all got to share our practice in different ways through talking or experiencing. And I think what I'm hearing, Charlie, is that there was a lot of talking. There was a lot of circles and unpacking through language what was happening. And Charlie did a beautiful offering where, similar to these, where we just did things. And that the practice was the theory. And the theory is the practice. So we were, yeah. Is that right, Charlie? I think I've got a thumbs up and some feedback. Awesome.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, and I got a question to myself. Hello, buddy. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, I got a question though. Like when really he showed as a book, like I really like that. I did know, like, and I would like a copy of that. I would, like, because I would be a part of her, because I really like very much. I do, and it'd be good though, for me though to be let her to be a part of the project. I would.
Which project is that, Luke?
This the chain and the bridge project stuff, things like that. What I'm doing, yeah.
Yeah, these are projects, Lily, that Luke is directing and leading Second Echo on. It's part of a trilogy of works that he's been making over the last, I guess, when did we start, Luke? About a year or so ago on the chain. And he's looking for, you know, just research and partners to talk about it to help him, you know, figure out what languages he needs.
I would love to talk to you about it, Luke, and I'd love to know more about it. Is there somewhere I can go or something to find out more about the project?
Yes, if you go to talk to Kelly about that, because I'm doing the grant for one of the projects I am doing, and Kelly knows bit more about it as well. She does, yeah.
Yeah, I just put the website in the chat there, Lily. There's a tiny little bit in there on the chain, the beginning, if on the projects tab. But maybe we can set up a time outside of this to, you know, to Zoom with Luke, and I can share you his written materials. He's written a lot on both the chain and the bridge. that
Yeah,
I think
that would be
it's
awesome.
resonating with the way that you're talking of this, you know, of experiencing and thinking our way through things, and imagining our way through things.
Yay. Thank you.
Good on you, Luke.
Yeah,
Thanks,
cool.
Luke.
Yeah, cool. Because something I find out though by myself though on YouTube, I did know, and that is I've been searching up though about druids stuff though. I have been, and they say like like um like the elves elves and fairies and elves things it's
Brilliant.
is more my thing because with those with fairies and elves I find out they speak a language they do they actually speak they actually or have I spoken in language is I have and that language is Gaelic is
Gaelic.
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great, Luke. Thank you. Does anyone else have something they'd like to share, Jennifer?
I just wanted to ask, probably this is a bit ahead of time, but I'm just curious about like the slow transition into isolation and developing that project that you did. I'm just wondering what will be, so that entry point, and just thinking about that exit point of, in a way, yeah, whether that project has an exit point or whether it just stays there as restrictions are lifting and as like children are starting to expand their social circles of connection.
Yeah, so I think it will continue. How exactly it will, I don't really know. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about emergent projects is that it's, you know, I mean, the conversation with Luke might take it somewhere completely unexpected because a new person will come in, or so it's just hard to know exactly where it will go, but it does house concepts that feel important across the methodologies that I'm thinking about at the moment. So I think it will continue. Exactly how, I'm not sure. But yes, the fact that it was born during COVID-19, I wanted to also make sure that it would have a life, not just in response to lockdown, but that it was speaking about something other and wider as well.
Oh yeah, and I got something to add to that. I do. And that's about this COVID-19. I'd like to Kelly. I'd like to my next thing when it comes to my turn again of directing, I'd like to do something on about is what this is about this virus and the Spanish flu. I know that happened during the past, but I would like to combine them together so it will so it's more of the understanding how it makes us feel going through this situation. And I'd like to do something about it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Charlie.
Lily, what was the name of the book that you were reading from at the beginning?
It's called Song Spirals.
Song Spirals. Beautiful.
Is there anyone else that has a thought? Or yeah.
Sorry, I just had another question. Hello, I just loved everything you said then. I just was writing so quickly and I need to listen to it. I wonder if there's a video recording we can watch again of it. But I wondered, I think you mentioned another book, maybe Donna Haraway, Staying with the Trouble, or is that?
Yeah, so that's Donna Haraway.
Okay.
And there's actually a beautiful documentary that's recently come out with her speaking about her work. Maybe Alex, I'll put together some links.
Yeah, I'm thinking even the Google Doc that we're putting together, we might have a space for people to add links to anything.
Yeah,
so we'll send out a Google Doc and then people can drop in things to share. So it'll be kind of an evolving list from this session. Simon has we forgot to mention Simon at the beginning, and he's just said he's making a drawing of this meeting. Simon, do you want to just say a couple of words or a small hello and what you're doing and why you're being so quiet?
Yeah.
Are you hearing me now?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, I muted one of them. Sorry, Simon, because it was doing a feedback thing and it muted both.
So I'm making, it's doing both.
Yeah, you can't mute one.
Yeah, I'm just going to put my phone outside.
That's great.
Okay. No, that's better. Sorry, yeah, I'll just say. So I'm making a drawing as we go along of all of this, which I'll happily show at the end. So I'm capturing a few of the names of books and stuff like that as well, and whatever, and I'll show it at the end. Oh God, I just want to jump in though so often. I'm really finding it hard to stay quiet.
But Simon, does that practice have a name? Like, do you?
Well, I call them my gather flow drawings. I draw this way. I use it in my PhD considerably as a kind of making.
Did you say gather flow?
Gather flow, yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh God, the thing that's really struck me is I think probably we've been in lockdown the whole time around our work with children. You know, we've been institutionalized with all this work, and so evident in the discussions, I think. It's just been, yeah. I agree with everything you say, Lily. I think it's all fabulous. It's all really good. But now is the time to break out of this product-based, institutionalized, educative, adult-focused way of working with children.
Yeah.
Now's the time.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm just at the moment trying to coin a new word to describe. I'm post-learning.
People always worry about the instrument. People always worry about the instrumentalization of art.
Yeah.
I think I'm far more worried about the institutionalization of art, what we've actually had. So, that seems to me a problem. Anyway, I'm going to go silent again and keep drawing.
Yeah, cool. Craziness.
Okay. So I thought we would just do something together before we moved into a final collective writing experience.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're just going to do a little mirroring game, which likely everyone has played before, where someone leads and everyone follows. And we're just going to work with our hands. Hands are something that we have a new relationship with. Mine feel like they are experiencing drought at the moment from being washed so much. So if you just want to move your hands up close to your camera.
Yes, right.
And I am going to start leading, and then we'll change that leadership. I'll invite somebody else to lead. And the idea is to follow as closely as you can, embracing and noticing and enjoying all the discrepancies and nuances of lag and Frank, do you want to take over? And then if you can't see Frank or you don't know who he is, just trust that following someone else will give you the information that's coming from Frank.
Pass the lead on to Bryony Jeeves.
And then now just find one other person to follow. You don't need to know, they don't need to know who that person is. So there might be a moment of not knowing exactly who's leading or who's following. And then change, so you're following someone else. And then change quickly from one person to a different person to a different person. So you're making connections across lots of people. Beautiful, and just let that slowly fall away. So we're going to move back into chat function, and we're just going to play a quick word association game. It will be messy because you won't know exactly who's responding who or how quickly you can get your word in order to be able to respond. But the game works like this. I'll type in a word to start, and then we will begin typing words in response to the word that is above you. Now that response may be something that's an obvious response. So if someone writes apple, you might write pear, but it might be a completely not obvious response. Like I might write apple and then I might write rabbit because my rabbit loves apple. And you might look at that and go, well, that makes no sense. But to me, it makes enormous sense. That was the first thing that came to mind because my rabbit loves apple. So we're just going to play quickly, and then I'll talk to you about what is happening next. On your marks, get ready, get set.
Storm.
Go. Oh, I'll time that in. Oh, oops. Okay, freeze. So now we'll move into responding with a word that has absolutely no connection whatsoever to the previous word that was written. Your marks, get set, go. And freeze. Cool. Okay, so we're going to go into another collective writing practice, and I'd really love it if everyone just turned their mics on.
Lily, you're on mute. You demonstrated really well.
I demonstrated unmuting by muting. Yeah, so everyone is now on, and we're just going to do a collective automatic writing practice, which works like this. There are a whole lot of ideas, thinkings in this space now, and one way of processing them or sharing them is to do a writing practice. An automatic writing practice, I'm sure many of you have done this before, is just a subconscious, unedited process of starting with a provocation. It might be Agua Gently, it might be embodiment, it might be the idea of children being agents of culture. It could be anything that's come from the past 2 hours connected to things that we've talked about or things that you've thought about. And this is a subconscious, non-linear process. So we're going to write into chat. You can write for a while before you send your chat through. And you can also steal from each other. So if you get stuck or can't think what to say, if something that someone else has written resonates with you, just copy and paste it and put it back in, or add to it, or change it, or edit it. And we will collect these writings at the end. And does anyone have any questions about that?
Really
Do you
good.
want mics on or off?
Yeah, can we just have mics on? Yeah, is that okay? Just so that we can hear each other thinking and glitching and tapping away. It's so quiet when you're tapping away and can't. I just like being able to hear people working. And yeah, code of contact is care for each other, respect different perspectives, that this is a sharing of subconscious process. So just be in a kind of caretaking space. Also, if you get tired or you just feel like witnessing this, you can scroll back up and see what other people are writing, which might inspire you to write as well. And we'll do this for about 10 minutes. So we're going to take a bit of time to just write. So there'll be time to write and time to think, and that's it.
Sorry, Lily, what's the topic of what we're writing about?
Yeah, so anything that has risen in the past 2 hours. So it can be the Agua Gently project. It can be the idea of children as agents. It might be the acknowledgement of country moment that we had at the beginning. Something will have risen up for you that feels significant or interesting. So just take a minute to think about what that is, what a starting point might be. If you can't think of one, just use Agua Gently. Just use the word gently if you want as a starting place. The starting place doesn't really matter.
Lily, do you want us to post at the end of our writing or as we go?
It's up to you. It's up to you. You can post every now and then, or you can post right at the end. I've not done this before, so this is an experiment. Let's just see. I'm not sure what will happen. It might be a grand failure, or it might be really fun and interesting. I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see how it feels. But it does really feel lovely to me to be able to hear people moving in the space. So
cool.
Yeah, and I guess too, if anyone is uncomfortable with writing and just wants to talk, that could be a layer over what we're doing. So Luke, I've noticed sometimes you like to talk rather than write. Or Charlie, that's totally fine. You can just kind of wax lyrical about what comes in, and that will become part of the texture of the experience of writing. That's really fine.
Cool.
Lily, are we also able to move our response if Charlie and I need to move to find a word? Is that all right?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Yeah. And whenever you're ready, just start. And I should also just say, what you write doesn't have to make sense. So it doesn't have to make any sense at all. It can make no sense.
River.
That was a nice story. There it is. Oh, well, I read this story.
Oh, what's it called? The no, not number O or the K. No, I mean a C, not a K. E. That's better. Oh, bugger.
Okay, just in the last minute, let's all move into responsiveness. So take something from somewhere else, steal something, respond to something, answer something, copy something, so that whatever goes into the chat box is in response to or is an interpretation of another way of saying something. So let's just play with responsiveness.
Really hard to spell sometimes. Oh, this is on I just spelled bloody mirror. Sorry about my words.
M-I-R-R-O-R.
That again.
M-I.
M-I. Is it M-I, yeah?
R.
A double R. M-I-R-O. There you.
Perfect.
All right, let's just let that practice fall away because we're coming close to being out of time. I feel like I was just starting. I just wanted to go in to that. So I'll hand over to Alex to wrap. I just wanted to say thank you so much for this time. I know that time is so precious, and to carve 2 hours out of a day is enormous. So thank you for holding the space to be able to talk about this work. It's really beautiful to share this time with you.
I just done the last bit.
Yeah. As an offer back to Lily and to all those that have organised this shifting and stirring, can we all just say one word each that comes to mind that you're now feeling?
Gratitude.
You're nourished.
Nourished.
Inspired.
Playful.
Joy.
Inspired.
Joy.
Connected.
Connected.
Yeah.
Spirit. Spirit.
Expanded.
Gentle.
Animals.
Kind.
Alive.
Buzz.
Interlaced.
Fellows.
George.
Eyes.
Great. Thank you, everyone. I really feel that this moment, or this shifting and sharing, has really provided, I've been thinking a lot about togetherness and how much that sharing together does so much for our industry and all of the things that happen from that. So I want to thank not only Lily, but everyone in this room, or this virtual room, for sharing their brains and their hearts and their spaces and time today, because this wouldn't exist unless all of us were here, as Lily talked about before. We want Shifting and Stirring to kind of keep developing and evolving into what we need, as we all know that the landscape is shifting continuously. So we're constantly reflecting as to how this can be useful and how this can be valuable. So telling us what you have enjoyed and what you've got from it really helps us plan the next one, as well as ideas that you have or topics that you'd like to see it move forward. So I will send out a little survey link later on today, which would be great to get your feedback on. We'll also send out the Google Doc so that we all have a copy of the text and all of those inspirations that we wrote citations beforehand. The next Shifting and Stirring is with Frank. Do we know the other artists yet, Frank? Or don't know yet? Evolving.
Yeah, possibly Curly Fernandez or Kay Yasugi.
Great. So Sydney Opera House has been working in schools particularly, so this will probably be quite focused on a kind of different space maybe than some of us are working in, or the ones that we've had before, which is exciting. That's going to be on the 19th of June. We're all going to have a meeting on Fridays doing a bit of a reflection, so I expect the event link and everything will be up beginning of the following week. Now that you've all booked, I'll send you an email out so that you all have the booking link for the next one if you'd like to attend.
Thank you, I would.
Great, awesome, Luke. I'm glad you'd like to come again. I'm glad you're finding this useful. It's great to see you back as well. I think that's everything from me. Lily, have I missed anything? Simon, Frank? No? All good.
I think Aidan wants to say something.
Just an invitation for anyone that wants to be in touch, or anyone that wants to connect with others, you know, if you've made connections in chat rooms, that we could facilitate that. And you're welcome to get in touch if you want to have further conversations.
Do we get to see Simon's picture?
Oh, Simon.
Yay. Yeah.
Where are you, Simon?
Where are you, Simon?
Aiden had his hand up.
Oh, Aiden.
Hello, Jan. You there?
Yeah, Aiden, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Well, I can get it on my phone on Facebook. Can you talk to this? A time.
Yep. Go for Aidan has a few moves. So maybe if, as we're heading out, if anyone wants to do some moves with Aidan, he would like to show his reflection in a dance of Gentle that he's been thinking about while he's been listening. Go, Aidan.
And I can happily share my drawing if you want me to.
Should we watch
Please.
Darling.
I'm going to pin it.
So that I feel you've got to believe that there's a reason we're here. Yeah, there's a reason.
So beautiful, Aiden. He'll dance all day, people. You can join in.
Simon, can we see your picture?
Sure.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh, goodness.
Wow.
Oh,
so good.
Oh my goodness.
I was just thinking how much I would have liked to have been isolated at your house, Simon.
Yeah. So great.
Thanks, Aiden.
Well done, Aiden.
That was beautiful, Aiden.
That was cool, Aiden.
Thank you, Karen.
Beautiful work, mate.
Simon.
Wow, Simon, that's amazing.
Oh, this is so great. I kind of want to print it off and put it on my wall.
Yeah.
We're totally doing that.
So I can remember.
It's beautiful, Simon.
Yeah, very.
The otter or the other? I like the otter.
I find that sketching and writing really helps listening.
Yeah, I've been doodling the whole time we've been here too.
Yeah. Oh,
that's gorgeous.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, you've been the witness there.
Oh, this is so great. Love all the screenshots in it too.
Yeah.
Simon, what program do you use?
Are you hearing me actually?
Yeah. Now I can.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I wasn't sure if you were hearing me. It's called Notability, and I use it all the time. And I love the idea of people making drawings that we could then insert. I'm trying to use this as a research technique, a collaborative research.
Yeah, that's
can add their own
brilliant.
drawings. So that would be lovely. I'm working on that. But no, I'm pretty pleased with that. But I've actually recorded the drawing being made. So it's a 1 hour, nearly 2 hour drawing.
Wow.
So I can put that up.
Simon.
It's a photo. So if I show you on photos here it is.
Thanks, Simon.
Animating.
Oh, you record
how
the
it starts.
screen.
So I record my screen. So it starts with Christo, which is suitable. The journey is the work of art.
Yeah.
And I'll speed it up. For
It is.
Otherwise, you have to sit there for 2 hours and watch it. But, it does actually record the screen too.
Wow.
Wow.
That's really cool. That's great.
But you need a
But I think what I'm interested in is what knowledge can be created through making drawings like this and making connections that I wouldn't do otherwise, as we all do when we make notes and things. We connect stuff, and it's it is a non-verbal, non-word based response to the ideas, I think. And if things get joined together in lines and circles and groupings, then I find that interesting.
That journey is the production, Simon.
Yeah, in the PhD, I used to describe these drawings as describing something, but they're not. They actually are creating knowledge.
Joining is like a chain to me. It is.
It's like a what?
A chain.
Oh, okay.
A chain.
Yeah.
Well, it's about connecting. Yeah. Anyway, that's it. You can. I'll put it. I'll put it up online with the video.
That'd be amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Great.
much.
Thank you, everyone. I'm coming out of there now. Coming back to here. Stop. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Lily. Thank you.
Thanks, Lily.
Bye. See you all. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.